My name is Karina Darrow, and the last time my father told me I was an embarrassment to the family name, I'd just returned from coordinating a joint strike operation in the Sahel that eliminated a high-value terrorist target. They had no idea that while they worried about my unstable lifestyle, I commanded some of the most elite soldiers in the world. I've been a colonel in Joint Special Operations Command for 8 years. My family thinks I'm a low-level military translator who can't advance her career. The deception wasn't entirely intentional. When I joined the Army at 22, fresh out of West Point, I'd simply said I was going into the military. When I made captain in Special Forces at 29, I mentioned a promotion during a tense family dinner. My father had grunted acknowledgement before returning to his discussion of real estate deals with my brother Leonid. When I was selected for JSOC at 34, one of the youngest officers and one of the few women to reach that level, I'd tried to explain the significance. My father had cut me off mid-sentence. Yes, military career, very noble, but when will you think about your future, about marriage? About giving me grandchildren worthy of our family? So I'd stopped trying to explain. We'd emigrated from Russia when I was 8, my father determined to build an empire in America. And build it he did, a construction business that grew into a real estate empire, properties across 3 states, connections that stretched into the highest echelons of the Russian-American business community. He measured success in visible terms, buildings with his name on them, cars that announced wealth, social standing that could be displayed and envied. My career was invisible to him. Classified operations, secret deployments, achievements that could never be discussed at dinner parties. To him, I was a disappointment wrapped in camouflage. The mockery had evolved over the years, growing sharper as I climbed higher in my actual career while appearing to stagnate in their eyes. At 39, unmarried, childless, with a job they couldn't brag about at the Russian club, I was a source of shame. My brother Leonid had followed father into the business, expanding it, modernizing it, becoming father's golden child. He had the penthouse apartment, the luxury cars, the beautiful wife who spoke 4 languages and hosted charity galas. I had a security clearance so high that most of Congress couldn't access my files. But they didn't know that. Karina still plays soldier, Leonid would say at family gatherings, his tone dripping with condescension, running around in the woods somewhere, pretending to be important. I'd smile and change the subject. Operational security wasn't just a rule, it was survival. The less my family knew about what I actually did, the safer they were, the safer I was. But it came at a cost. My father's disappointment was a physical presence at every family event. He'd introduced Leonid with pride, my son, the vice president of Volkov Development, and me with barely concealed shame. My daughter, she's in the military. Translator, I think. Linguist, I'd correct quietly. Yes, words. He'd wave his hand dismissively. Important for someone, I'm sure. The Russian-American community my father moved in was obsessed with status. Every conversation was a competition. Every gathering a chance to display success. Doctors, lawyers, business owners. These were respectable professions. These were children you could brag about. A daughter who couldn't discuss her work, who showed up to events in a modest sedan instead of a luxury car, who had no husband to parade around. This was failure. 3 months ago, at my cousin's wedding, my Aunt Svetlana had cornered me near the bar. "Karina, darling," she'd said, her English still heavily accented despite 30 years in America, "your father is so worried about you, still in the military at your age. Don't you think it's time to find a real career? My friend's daughter works at a translation agency. Very prestigious. I could put in word." "I'm happy where I am," I'd said. "But you're 40 soon." She looked genuinely distressed. "No husband, no children, no proper career. What will become of you?" I'd wanted to tell her that I'd just spent 2 weeks coordinating a hostage rescue in Somalia, that I briefed the Secretary of Defense monthly, that I commanded resources most people couldn't imagine. Instead, I'd said, "I'll manage, Aunt Svetlana." She'd patted my hand pityingly and moved on to discuss her son's promotion at Goldman Sachs. The worst moments came from my father himself. 2 years ago, he'd tried to set me up with the son of a business associate, a divorce lawyer with a BMW and an inflated sense of his own importance. I declined politely. Father had exploded. You think you're too good for him? You, who can barely keep a job, who runs around the world with no purpose. He has a practice, a reputation. What do you have? I have my work, I'd said. Your work, he'd spat the words. Translating documents for officers too lazy to learn Russian themselves. This is what I raised you for? This is what justifies your existence? I'd stood there, silent, thinking about the operation I'd planned that had disrupted a weapons trafficking network. About the soldiers under my command who trusted me with their lives. About the medals I'd earned that I could never show him, locked away in a safe in my apartment. You bring me nothing but shame, he'd said finally. Your brother, he understands family, he understands legacy. You are selfish, chasing some fantasy of importance when you should be building a real life. I left that dinner early and spent the night reviewing intelligence reports for an operation in Yemen. The distance between my two lives had become a chasm I could no longer bridge. At work, I was Colonel Darrow. Officers snapped to attention when I entered a room. Generals asked for my assessment. I'd earned my place through blood, sweat, and capabilities most people couldn't comprehend. At family gatherings, I was simply Karina, the disappointing daughter who'd wasted her potential. The invitation to the Russian club event came via my father's secretary. Annual business gala, the email read. Your father requests your attendance. Black tie, 7 p.m. Saturday. No, please. No personal message, just a summons. I almost declined. The week had been brutal, a developing situation in Eastern Europe that had kept me at headquarters for 72 hours straight. I was exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline, and the last thing I wanted was to endure another evening of subtle mockery and obvious disappointment. But something made me accept. Maybe exhaustion had worn down my usual defenses, maybe I was tired of hiding. The Russian club occupied a renovated mansion in the Virginia suburbs, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers, a monument to immigrant success and old-world elegance, the kind of place my father loved, where he could display his achievements and hold court among peers. I arrived at 7:15 p.m., deliberately late. I'd chosen a simple black dress, elegant but understated, the kind of thing that wouldn't draw attention. My only jewelry was a watch and small earrings. The valet took my keys with barely concealed disappointment at my 10-year-old sedan. Inside, the gala was in full swing. 100 people in designer clothes, holding champagne flutes, networking with the intensity of sharks circling prey. I recognized many faces, business owners, professionals, the successful children of successful immigrants. I found my father holding court near the bar, surrounded by a group of men in expensive suits. Leonid stood at his right hand, playing the dutiful son. Father saw me approaching and his expression soured. Karina, you came. He didn't sound pleased. You invited me. I invited you to arrive on time. He gestured at my dress with distaste. And to dress appropriately. This is an important evening. These are important people. I think I'm dressed fine. Leonid smirked. For a military event, maybe. This is civilization, little sister. The men around Father chuckled. I recognized a few of them. Construction magnates, real estate developers, men who measured their worth in property and profit. Karina is in the military, Father explained to them, his tone apologetic. She translates, Russian to English, very useful, I'm told. Ah, one of the men said politely, clearly searching for something positive to say. That's noble, serving your country. She could serve her country better by marrying well and producing proper American children, Father said, and there was real bitterness in his voice. But she prefers to play soldier. I felt the familiar wash of humiliation and anger, but I kept my face neutral. Years of intelligence work had taught me to control my reactions. If you'll excuse me, I said, I'll get a drink. Yes, go, Father waved me away like a servant. Adults are talking here. I walked to the bar, ordered vodka, good vodka, not the cheap stuff, and found a quiet corner to observe. This had become my default at family events. Watch, endure, wait for an acceptable time to leave. The evening progressed predictably. speeches about community and success, awards for business achievement. My father received one outstanding contribution to Russian-American business development and gave a speech about hard work and legacy. He mentioned Leonid 3 times. He didn't mention me at all. Around 9:30 p.m., I decided I'd fulfilled my obligation. I'd stayed long enough to be counted present. I could leave without causing a scene. I was heading toward the exit when Father's voice cut across the room. "Karina, where are you going?" I turned. He was still with his group of business associates, but now they'd been joined by several others. 10 or 12 men, all around Father's age, all successful, all watching me with varying degrees of curiosity and pity. "I was leaving," I said. "I have work tomorrow." "Work?" Father laughed, and it wasn't kind. "Yes, your very important translation work. Cannot miss a day of that." Leonid appeared at his elbow. "Let her go, Father. She's obviously uncomfortable around successful people." "Perhaps she is embarrassed," one of the other men suggested, not unkindly. "It cannot be easy, being the daughter of Viktor Volkov and achieving so little." I felt something crystallize in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something colder. Something that had been building for years. "I should go," I repeated. "Yes, you should." Father's voice had taken on an edge I recognized from childhood. The tone he used when he was about to make a point, to teach a lesson. "Get out of here." I stopped walking. "You heard me." He pointed toward the exit, his voice rising. The room was starting to notice, conversations faltering, heads turning. "Get out of here. Serious men are discussing important matters here, and you only bring me shame with your very existence." The words landed like physical blows. The room had gone silent. Everyone was watching now, the successful businessman humiliating his disappointing daughter in front of the entire community. I stood frozen, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. And then the main doors opened. 4 men entered, moving with the distinctive bearing of military professionals. They wore civilian clothes, but I recognized them immediately, my security detail. They must have been monitoring my location, as protocol demanded for senior JSOC officers. And behind them, 6 more men. These were the ones who changed everything. Russian Special Forces, Spetsnaz. I recognized the commander, Colonel Dmitry Volkov of the GRU, no relation to my father despite the shared surname. We'd worked together on joint operations, counterterrorism coordination between allied nations. They'd been in the area for a classified briefing I'd hosted 2 days ago, and they'd chosen this moment to pay a courtesy call. The security detail spotted me first. One of them started forward, his hand moving toward his concealed weapon when he saw my position, isolated, surrounded, clearly in distress. Then Colonel Volkov saw me. His eyes widened in recognition. He barked something in Russian to his men, a sharp command. And suddenly, those very serious men surrounding my father, the business magnates, the successful developers, the pillars of the Russian-American community, dropped to their knees. All of them. In perfect unison. They'd recognized the Spetsnaz uniforms, understood the rank insignia, known with absolute certainty that Russian Special Forces don't kneel for anyone less than someone very, very important. Colonel Volkov strode across the room, his men flanking him. He stopped 3 feet from me and came to attention. "Comrade Colonel of Foreign Intelligence," he said in Russian, his voice carrying across the silent room. "We were unaware a civilian was threatening you. Do you require assistance?" The world stopped. My father's face had gone white, his mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Leonid had frozen mid-gesture, his champagne flute halfway to his lips. Every person in that room, the successful, the powerful, the ones who'd just watched my father humiliate me, stared in absolute shock. "I'm fine, Colonel Volkov," I said in Russian, keeping my voice level. "This is a family matter." "A family matter?" He glanced at my father, then back to me, his expression hardened. "This man is your family?" "My father." Understanding flickered across his face, followed by something that might have been pity. He'd seen this before. The warrior whose family doesn't understand what she is. He turned to my father and switched to English. "You are very fortunate, sir, that your daughter has more discipline than you have wisdom." Then he snapped a salute, a crisp, perfect military salute that every person in that room understood meant respect and recognition of superior rank. My father's legs gave way beneath him. He collapsed, catching himself on a nearby chair, his face ashen. Around him, the other men were slowly rising from their knees, their expressions ranging from confusion to dawning horror as they understood what they'd just witnessed. Leonid's champagne flute slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The sound echoed in the absolute silence. Colonel Volkov was still at attention, waiting for my acknowledgement. I returned his salute. "Thank you for your concern, Colonel. Please enjoy your evening." He nodded, signaled his men, and they withdrew, but not before every single one of them had rendered me a salute. Russian special forces don't salute low-level translators. I turned to face my father. He was still collapsed in his chair, staring at me like I was a stranger. Which, I suppose, I was. "I am a colonel in Joint Special Operations Command," I said quietly, speaking to him but knowing everyone in the room would hear. "I coordinate classified operations across multiple theaters. I command some of the most elite soldiers in the world. I brief generals and cabinet members. I have saved more lives than you've built buildings." His mouth worked soundlessly. "I never told you because my work is classified. Because the less you knew, the safer you were. Because operational security matters more than your pride." I paused. "But mostly because you never asked. You never wanted to know. You only wanted me to be what you could understand." The room remained frozen, silent witnesses to the complete inversion of everything they'd believed. I looked at Leonid. "I don't play soldier, brother. I am a soldier, the real kind, the kind who makes decisions that matter." Then I looked back at my father and I felt something break free in my chest. Not anger, not vindication, just a profound exhaustion with carrying the weight of his disappointment. "I came tonight because you asked. I stayed because I hoped, foolishly, that you might see me, really see me." I shook my head. "But you're so blinded by your own definition of success that you can't recognize excellence when it's standing in front of you." I turned toward the exit. My security detail materialized at my sides, professional, protective, making it clear to everyone watching that I was someone who warranted protection. Behind me, I heard a crash. My father's chair toppling as he tried to stand, failed, and collapsed again. I heard voices rising in Russian and English, shock and questions and recalculations. But I didn't look back. I walked through those doors into the cool Virginia night, and I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed. A text from my deputy commander. "Situation developing in Syria. Need you on the secure line in 30. I typed back, "On my way. Just another Saturday night. Just another crisis to manage. Just another day in my very unimportant